as they prepare to swing right-handed shortly to race to 4 flights of hurdles
This
over
is
in
the
the back
OTB
straight.
Television Network,
We have
a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us. A little bit later on, John Lees, the paddock commentator from Del Mar. Del Mar opened up yesterday for their fall meet, so we'll get a little preview of the fall Del Mar action. We'll also be joined by Dave Rodman. Nice day of stakes action down in Maryland today at Laurel. And speaking of stakes action, also a nice stakes day down at Gulfstream Park West. Sunshine Millions preview day. So who better to reach out to than our friend Ron Nicoletti. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How are you today?
Very good. Happy to catch up with you. And again, a nice day of the Sunshine Million preview stakes. Nice stakes day coming up down at Gulfstream that we'll touch on in a few moments. But just some general info before we get into that. First, give us a little, we'll live vicariously again as we normally do this time of year with you. Weather-wise, what's the weather look like down there? Because I will tell you, for the first time this season, I walked out of my place last night, walked to the parking lot, and a couple of cars in the lot. A little wet snow on the windshield. That was not a happy sight.
Geez, no, we're actually, I heard people complaining, and not to brag because we do this every year, but we're waiting for it to get a little bit cooler. It's going to be in the mid-80s. It's been actually in the high 80s. It's fast, it's firm. So it's been one of those. We haven't had much rain over the last couple of weeks. So, we're just in that zone right now where it's still warm. It hasn't switched over to the fall-type weather, which we all look forward to down here.
And you and I were talking before we went on the air. Championship meet a couple weeks away, essentially, and you're at Gulfstream Park West right now. Things move over to Gulfstream Park proper shortly, and again, that championship meet that everybody looks forward to. And you said horses are shipping in.
Oh, yeah, we got horses shipping in all the time. We got all the horses from Latin America that'll be running in the Crib Classic, which is in our second weekend, and they have to get down. They have to be put on the side for a little bit to check them out and all that. So it's starting to build up. You get that feeling, and of course, got the same barn. Bill Mott. Just all the guys start coming back, and we got Kenny McPeak coming back here this year. So a lot of different things going on. We're almost done with Gulfstream Park West. We've got a great day today, but, that championship meet, and you've read throughout what the Pegasus World Cup might shape up to be. There are some incredible horses pointing for that.
Yeah, and now the turf event this year as well. And that Caribbean event is I was going to say odd. Odd is not unique. It's a unique event. But it's a lot of fun with flags flying and some good betting opportunities as well.
Yeah, I've got a big smile on my face because I still can picture the guy running down the track with the flag after his horse from whatever country won, and we're like sitting there going, what the heck is going on around here, And, of course, if you've been to Gulfstream Park, our walking ring is enclosed, and it was just insane. There was just flags everywhere. So a lot of fun, and I've just been talking to people coming in. They said they got a nice quality of horses coming in for this year. Last year we didn't know what to expect, but these guys know from the Latin American countries, who to bring, who has a shot. So we'll see how everything plays out. And that's just one of the things happening, opening day. Can't wait for opening day.
Yeah, we all look forward to it because, again, it's a great season of racing down there at Gulfstream. But the rest of the year it has upgraded as well. That's been kind of the modus operandi the last couple of years down at Gulfstream. The off-season, away from the championship meet, A lot of the big barns stick down there, and that was demonstrated last weekend, and I want to get your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup. But going back to the very first Breeders' Cup race, the new race on the schedule, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, we'll pull up the stretch run here. It's number 5 Bulletin getting it done for Todd Pletcher off a maiden breaker and a stakes race in September at Gulfstream. So the Breeders' Cup weekend kicked off with a nice feather in the cap for Gulfstream Park Racing.
Yeah, and, talked to Todd before that race, and he just said, he was looking for a maiden race, and they didn't fill or whatever it was, so he thought the horse was doing so well, as you can see, and he just said, well, put him in a stake to Hollywood Beach, and he just won for fun, and, of course, came back. So a little feather in our cap. Of course, Todd is a year-round resident here in South Florida, so that certainly helps, and as you've been, I'm sure you've watched all summer and spring, summer and fall long. We have the biggest fields in the world because when you're a handicapper, you notice that. I mean, we have 12, 14 horses in turf races all the time.
And again, a lot of the big names remain down there, certainly all the familiar names. And that was, as they say, a nice feather in the cap with a horse for Pletcher who broke the maiden down there in September in the career debut and followed up with the Breeders' Cup win. Let me just get some overall thoughts on the Breeders' Cup last weekend. What did you come away with? What impressed you?
Well, what impressed me the most was the performance from, another local horse, Gunavera. You didn't know what to expect, and he just ran a bang-up second. I thought he might win the race, and that's how close it got. So just a great performance by him, and, it's sort of a hometown cheer and everything. Otherwise, I zigged when I should have zagged, but I thought it was great, very formful, Breeders' Cup, and we'll see. I want to see some of those European turf horses come here for the Pegasus Turf race, and it would be a lot of fun. But that was my big thing to take away from it was the performance of Gunavera. I just thought that was incredible.
Yeah, I've been on Gunavera almost all year long, and I kind of hopped off last weekend and kicked myself a little bit. But that, as you say, zigged when it's zagged. And everybody, it seemed like it was tough to come up with some prices. We all kind of swing for the fences, and it was a little bit logical. Yeah. Unless you had a real opinion last weekend, it was a little bit logical to come away really scoring. But it was a fun, Enable was a lot of fun. Accelerate, and again, we'll look forward to that in the Pegasus. I guess they're talking about maybe Monomoy Girl in the Pegasus.
Yeah, why not? She was so impressive. It was impressive. That performance just was on the outside. Yeah, just so many great performances, and that's what I was saying about when we started the show about who might end up in the Pegasus. It could turn out to be the best of those races that we ever had, with just a very competitive field.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I think our game plan is to be back down there again this year, so looking forward to that. And just before we move on, I have to admit, I'm not sure now with the Gulfstream Park West facility what is there as far as simulcast, but I'm just curious, last weekend, was there a Breeders' Cup crowd at Gulfstream Park West, or is most of that simulcast crowd, do they show up over at Gulfstream Park proper?
Yeah, they have to be at Gulfstream Park proper. We don't have simulcasting over there, but there was still a crowd there, because now you can bet on your phone, so they were using the express bet and just betting, with the advent of phone wagering, it's so much easier. But they were here, and we were jammed. It looked like a regular, championship meet weekend here. It was jammed top to bottom. It was totally sold out. So it was a lot of fun, and of course, a lot of local rooting interest. Besides them, Kathleen O'Connell's horse didn't run that well, but we still had that rooting interest.
Yeah, it was a big weekend here at our Clubhouse Racebook in Albany as well. Always like to see that. All right, speaking of big weekends, again, a nice stakes day down at Gulfstream Park West this afternoon with Sunshine Millions preview races, and we're going to take a look at some of them for this Saturday afternoon. Let's kick things off in the 4th race. It's the Millions Classic. It's a short field of 5, Ron, but man, this is a nice competitive field. I could make a case going in any direction. I pulled up a replay from the Mo Exception back on September 7th. Deland, the number 7 horse, is going to be the winner there. On the morning line, this one's the second choice. But off those last 2 wins, I think this horse comes in very good form. However, Mr. Jordan, the 6-5 morning line favorite, close up second in this race last year, in the Sunshine Millions Classic actually last year. Jay's Way, who's also in this afternoon, was the winner of last year's Sunshine Millions Classic. So as I say, it's a short field, but I think it's very competitive.
Well, just for everybody that's been betting Gulfstream Park West, speed has just been the key on the main track and also on the turf. So DeLand has a big shot. You could see him drawing off to win by 8 lengths now. But Mr. Jordan won this preview race here last year. This horse runs exceptionally well. He's never been beaten at Gulfstream Park West. 4 starts, 4 wins. So he's got to sit behind the speed today. But Paco Lopez, another 3 wins yesterday, I think adds the appeal of Mr. Jordan. But you're absolutely right. There's a whole bunch of ways you can go in there. DeLand, and as you mentioned, Jay's Way won it last year coming off the bench. For Armando de la Cerda certainly can run, well in there. So that's a tough field for 5 horses.
Yeah, I agree. It's a short field, but very, very competitive. Let's move on to the 8th race, and I'm looking forward to some of these juvenile races this afternoon. The 8th race is the Juvenile Fillies Turf, mile on the grass for the 2-year-old fillies. And again, nice competitive field in here. 9 horses slated to go. Kathleen O'Connell has Classy Lynn, who going to get the class test, no pun intended with Classy Lynn, but moves out of a maiden breaker against Claimers. Blazing Brook is a little bit of a price, but a couple of third-place finishes in stakes races in the past couple of starts. And Jolie Bay on the outside, the number 9 horse, 5-2 on the morning line. Tried Stakes Company last time up at Woodbine, now comes down to Gulfstream Park for the formidable Mark Casse. What do you see in the Juvenile Filly Turf?
Well, I swung for the fences in this one. I really like the 4 Box of Gold, and my thought process was, even though this horse, broke its maiden for $20,000, going 7.5 on the turf last time out, was claimed by Oscar Gonzalez, and that certainly piqued my interest. This one, the barn 36% with new claims. I just thought this one has the previous experience on the turf over this turf course, and I just thought with the other, sort of suspect pace scenario in here that maybe Box of Gold with Miguel Vasquez, strong closer, could spring the upset in there. But that is another wide open affair where you can go a bunch of different ways. You mentioned Blazing Brook, I think, has got a shot. So I just thought for a little bit of a price, I'd go with that. And you sort of got to put Jolie Bay on the ticket on your try or super. I'm
just looking because I like the connections of your pick here. Barbosa and my man Jaramillo, who I've liked ever since he showed up down in South Florida. But I'm looking at their combination at Gulfstream Park West over the past couple of seasons. It's a fairly limited sample, only 31 starters, but they're 42%.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, so you got to pay attention to that. And I just thought maybe that with a shot there would be pretty good.
I like it. All right, and let's move on to the 9th race, the Millions Distaff. 7 furlongs for the ladies, and a nice full field in here of 10. And again, you can make a case for a few of them. Terry Pompey with the number 6 horse. This one comes in with a 3-race win streak, but there's a lot of horses coming in with good form. Starship Bonita, 3-1 on the morning line. The number 5 comes in off a nice little stakes race early in September. Again, nice competitive field of 10 in the Millions Distaff. Your thoughts?
I've been really enamored with the number 6 Harrisolo, stretching out to 7 furlongs. He posted those victories from distances of 5.5 to 6.5 furlongs. But just Terry Pompey has just had a fantastic spring and summer, and now going into the fall at Gulfstream Park West. So it's sort of like just this barn just been going so good that I put this one on top of the ticket. But, you got Todd Pletcher in there with a Shanghai Starlet going back to the main track. I thought that horse would run well. And Starship Bonita. But I'm going to hang my hat with Harrisol. I'm almost thinking of singling that one on my Rainbow Six ticket.
Ah, nice. And Ron, before we let you go, you were talking about hometown heroes and whatnot. How about Tyler Gaffalione? There's a guy that over the past few years in South Florida we've been talking about. You knew he had a bright future, but boy, he's kind of broken out over the past couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Keeneland meet. That's amazing
exactly.
right there. And he's doing it. I think he's leading rider at Churchill Downs, and it looks like that's where he's going to hang his hat. I'm sure he'll be back here for the winter meeting, and then it looks like he's going to ride in Kentucky the rest of the time. So, I mean, you just knew he was a star on the rise.
Yeah, it's great to see guys like that who you kind of watch and you're saying up-and-comer, 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 and then they break through like that. He was phenomenal over at Keeneland, certainly. Ron, as always, appreciate the visit. Wish you and everybody at Gulfstream Park West good luck this afternoon, and certainly we'll be catching up in the next few weeks as we get closer and closer to that championship meet.
You got it. Have a good day, guys. Stay dry.
Yeah, we're going to try. Stay warm is the key. Ron,
yeah.
Ron, thanks. Ron Nicoletti, Gulfstream Park West. Again, Sunshine Millions preview day today down there. So we touched on just a few of the stakes. Nice stakes action down there at GPW as they're kind of winding up their meet. Another, I think Ron said about 10 cards there before we kick over to Gulfstream Park proper and that nice championship meet. But as I say, they've really upgraded Gulfstream Park the rest of the year. There was the time where you left Gulfstream and you had the big extended summertime meet at Calder, now Gulfstream Park West. They've shortened that Gulfstream Park West and kind of upgraded things at Gulfstream Park. You know, there was a horse today, I think because I've handicapped ahead, it was today or tomorrow at Churchill that Mark Cassey had brought up from a couple of turf races down at Gulfstream Park. So Cassey's down there, Pletcher's down there, a lot of the familiar names down there all year long at Gulfstream Park now. So again, kind of an upgrade there, but they're in the midst of this little Gulfstream Park West meet now with the Sunshine Millions preview day this afternoon. Out at Aqueduct, a couple of nice stakes races as well. I haven't caught up with scratches yet, but the sixth race at Aqueduct today is the Atlantic Beach 2-year-olds on the turf. Again, we'll see if surface switches or whatnot. I don't know what kind of weather they had yesterday. We certainly had that mixed kind of precipitation yesterday up here. But if it stays on the turf, I had it 4, 7, 1, and 3. Gins and Tins was maybe a little bit interesting to me. And I think that's the one handicapper support Brian Edo was looking at as well. 8-1 on the morning line for Wesley Ward. And it wasn't my first choice necessarily. I mean, as I went through, you know, you kind of go through and preliminary, I'm tilting here, and then you kind of parse it out. And I just thought the horses that maybe were a little more logical number-wise had some question marks that still had to be answered maybe, whereas this one has been a bona fide turf sprinter throughout the career. Hasn't been seen since the middle of August up at Saratoga with that little time off. May come back a little bit improved. Will have to be, I think, number-wise. But I thought Gins and Tins for Wesley Ward and John Velasquez was interesting. Absentee, Alan Goldberg's runner. That's kind of where I was going to tilt first. Broke the maiden in the career debut with a pretty good number. The number improved nicely in the second start and allowance non-winners of one company. Those were both at Parks, and if you've been watching this fall, the Park shippers have done okay coming to New York. And as I say, I would have tilted in that direction, but hasn't tried the turf yet. If Absentee takes to the turf, will be very tough. But I wonder, and again, haven't seen any changes today yet, but maybe Alan Goldberg was kind of looking and thinking, you know, the way things have gone in New York, maybe this will move over to the main track, in which case he becomes my top pick. And again, we'll see a little bit later on when I do get a chance to check scratches and whatnot. But in the Atlantic Beach on the turf, 4, 7, 1, and 3. The 8th race at Aqueduct today is the Artie Schiller 3-year-olds and up going a mile on the turf. And again, if it is on the grass for me, 9, 1, 6, and 5 projected on top for Chad Brown. 4-1 on the morning line. I wonder if we'll get that. This horse comes out of a nice steady string of stakes races. 3 of the past 5 starts have been triple-digit buyers, and it's Chad Brown and Juddmonte. So I'm going to be interested to see how the odds shake out as we get closer to post time, because I think projected, I think the 4-1 is generous there. Kurban for Kieran and Shadwell came over here from Europe, won the Bernard Baruch at Saratoga, and then third last time in the Shadwell Turf Mile. Always kind of a salty race on the fall schedule down at Keeneland. So I thought the third was an okay race to come out of and then come to this one and be in a good competitive position. Bricks and Mortar will be the interesting horse from Chad. 5-2 on the morning line, which is the morning line favorite. Again, I'll be interested to see how the morning line translates into actual betting as they get closer to the gate this afternoon. Because Bricks and Mortar, and again, Brian Nadeau on the Handicappers Report was also taking a stand against this one. Hasn't been seen in over a year. Was in most recently, and again, that was a year ago, but against straight 3-year-olds. Now is a 4-year-old coming back after a year layoff, trying older for the first time. It's Chad, it's Klarovich. You would expect they're coming back in a stakes race like this. Bricks and Mortar should be set up to run well, certainly. But, I think there are question marks that you can take shots in other directions, particularly if the betting public agrees with the morning line and the source becomes the favorite. I think, to me, there are others here who are maybe a little more interesting on more clearly more recent form. So, again, in the Artie Schiller 9-1, 6-5 for me, should it stay on the turf. All right, we'll go to a break. And again, after the break, Dave Rodman from Laurel, they have a nice stakes card on tap this afternoon, so we'll hit on that. A little bit later, John Lees, paddock commentator from Del Mar. They're kicking off opening weekend out in Southern California at Del Mar for their fall meet, so we'll get a little preview there as well. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
To me, it's a privilege to be able to do this, and I mean that sincerely. And we see the need for it more and more. And when you do see the people that are in line for the turkeys, it makes it all well worth it.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices, to know how to connect the dots? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool, but not the only tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. These too are important tools, and you'll find them all right here at Capital OTB. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
To me, it's a privilege to be able to do this, and I mean that sincerely. And we see the need for it more and more. And when you do see the people that are in line for the turkeys, it makes it all well worth it.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. Nice stakes action across the country, and that includes a nice stakes day down in Maryland at Laurel Park. So who better to reach out to than Dave Rodman? Dave, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Seth, on this windy fall autumn day here at Laurel Park. I mean, very windy this morning. Hopefully it'll die down a bit this afternoon.
It was funny, as I was driving in today, coming down the Northway from the Saratoga area, there are points on the Northway that are tree lined, and it was literally like it was raining leaves. It was so windy.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole air was filled with leaves, and it was a strange look out there, but we're windy up here today as well. And it's that time of year. Speaking of that time of year, I wanted to ask you, is Pie Day coming up down at Laurel?
Oh, yeah, Thanksgiving Day. We have an 11:25 a.m. first race post. A lot of tracks changing their schedule, of course, for Thanksgiving with post times, and we usually start earlier, 11:25. And we have our pie giveaway here at Laurel Park every year, and we're going to do it again.
I always say that's one of my favorite racetrack giveaways, the pie. And haven't we talked before? They've done away with mincemeat, but it's apple and pumpkin now.
You know what? I haven't seen in print the choices, but I'm assuming it'll be apple and pumpkin again.
It's gotta be.
Yeah, mincemeat is like the citation of pies. It was good. It was good at the time, and great memory.
Yeah, I have to admit I'm more of an apple as opposed to mincemeat, so that would work out for me. But as I say, one of the better racetrack giveaways. Before we get to today's action, asking everybody that I'm talking to this weekend, go back to last weekend. First, talk a little bit about Laurel. Did you have a good crowd on Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday?
Yeah, we were very pleased, especially because it was probably the first time that a lot of people have gotten a chance to visit our new sports book area. Of course, we don't have wagering sports yet, but when we do, hopefully in the future, it's going to be a showcase place with a big, beautiful 70 by 22 foot HD screen. We could do whatever we want to at very high def. It's LED screen, actually. So a lot of people were up there. We had a really good crowd in that area because not only could you watch the Breeders' Cup, but you could watch the simulcast action. There was plenty of room on that very wide LED board up there. So if you haven't been to Laurel lately, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And even the old sports bar next to it has been renovated as well. and there's some new box seating areas that extend down to the finish line if you want to, watch the races right next to the window.
Our colleague here at the network, Brian Nadeau, was down, 3 or 4 weeks ago for a nice stakes day. They had the Horse Player Now tent there, and he was one of the participants there handing out some information to some of the bettors. We talked to him the next day, and he raved about the sportsbook area. He said it was gorgeous, and kind of compared it to what you might see if you went out to Vegas.
Yeah, it's picking up a lot of momentum. As soon as you walk in the building, you just have to go up the escalator to see it, and I think it's the weekends are the best time for it, but we're opening it as well on the non-weekend days too.
And just a little thought on what you saw in the Breeders' Cup. Obviously, great performances. Accelerate, Monomoy Girl, Enable was a lot of fun. Newspaper of Record and whatnot. What was your takeaway from the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup?
Well, Newspaper of Record, she's just a monster. I mean, that was, I think, the most impressive performance of the weekend. And well, Thunder Snow got beat last time when I bet him. Got beat this time when I bet him. So, was my I guess the bright side and the non-cashing side of the Breeders' Cup.
It was a tough couple of days to make money. I've said that, and I've talked to a lot of people. It just it worked out. It was kind of formful, and we all take swings Breeders' Cup weekend, and it was just, if you had a real opinion, you could have made some money, certainly, but it was tough. All right, let's see if we can get people some money this afternoon at Laurel again on a nice stakes day down there. We'll take a look at a few of these stakes. And first one up, the James Lewis 2-year-olds going 6 furlongs. And you and I were talking before we went on the air. A notable scratch in here. And I tell you, I pulled up a replay. We won't watch it, obviously, now with the scratch. But as I pulled it up, I thought, he didn't name a rider. I wonder if Wesley Ward is going to show up with Hawaiian Noises. The answer, no.
No, he scratched. That's the only scratch out of that race at this point at 6 furlongs. Ward does have some other intriguing runners in on the day. We'll touch on it a bit.
Give us your thoughts in the Jim Lewis with the remaining runners in here.
Well, Boston to Be Loved is a Contessa horse, the New York bred. That what's interesting to me. A couple of winners out of his last, well, at least one went out of his last race there. Belmont was a banker who won the Sleepy Hollow. I think he's got a good enough tactical early foot to be prominent throughout. I thought that Follow the Dog was super impressive in the Maryland Million Lassie. His sire, Bandbox, who won the General George, if you recall, a few years ago, now standing here in Maryland as a sire. And he's off to a red-hot start with the winners. And this is a really nice horse here, Follow the Dog. He's coming back a little quick off the Maryland Million, but with the blinkers on, he got his act together in the Beat Sky Magician and Out of the Park in the Maryland Million Lassie. So I think he's interesting. Let's see, Hawaiian Noise is a scratch. So I'm going to stick to the outside of those two runners there.
And also interesting, Wesley Ward scratches Hawaiian Noise, and maybe that is maybe that flatters Fayette Warrior because Ward keeps that one in. But the one that I find interesting is Scrap Copper, who went off as a 6-5 favorite in the Maryland Million Nursery and had trouble in there. And I'm just curious, 10-1 on the morning line. Does that last race darken the horse's form? And he went off at 6-5. So I'm just kind of curious. At a price, I might take a shot on Scrap Copper.
Yeah, well, his other dirt number is a little bit subpar, but it certainly has improved since the debut run and his win back in July. Yeah, he's an interesting price play that may be overlooked after being favored to Follow the Dog. Had an excuse. Fayette Warrior, I was just looking up his pedigree before we went on the air. I could see why they ran him on the turf first out, and they kept him on the turf. It's right away he's a half brother to a horse that won most of his races on the grass. So, that formula worked right away in breaking the maiden second start. But he's by exchange rate, and he comes out of that tough Laurel Futurity. The Futurity at Belmont, won by Uncle Benny. So, he's a question on the dirt, but certainly. Again, Ward is keeping that one in and scratching Hawaiian Noises. That means something, I believe, that he'll scratch the horse that's had a proven record on the dirt and keep the runner that's been only on the turf back on the dirt here in the James F. Lewis. Kind
Yeah.
One of the open races today, I think. I'll stay outside with Follow the Dog and the Contessa Bustin' to Be Loved.
Yeah, fun race, as those 2-year-old races always
The
are.
track, by the way, is right now I'd call it muddy. I don't know. They've harrowed it, and there's still quite a bit of visible moisture in spots on it. We had a lot of rain yesterday. Then the cold front came through with the wind, but it's very windy. It's sunny, so maybe by post time is certainly a possibility, and possibly even an upgrade to fast later this afternoon. So you're going to have an ever-changing track condition throughout the day. I know that the 7th we're talking about is not off till 3 o'clock Laurel time.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that. City of Laurel is race number 8. These are 3-year-olds going 7 furlongs. And again, field of 9 in here. And I pulled up to watch the replay while we talk from September 29th, the Chaladon, if I'm pronouncing that right, or Chaladon?
Chaladon, yeah.
Chaladon. And the winner will be Old Time Revival, the number 8 horse in here. Comes back off of that win with a nice, and I'm looking, it was a lifetime best buyer number there of a 94. So seems in good form after taking a chunk of the summer off from the end of July to the end of September. So pretty good little comeback effort here in the stakes race at the end of September. I thought had Old Time Revival set up nicely, but you can make cases for 2 or 3 others in here as well. What did you think in the City of Laurel?
Yeah, this is a spread race for sure. Old Time Revival finally settling down a little bit after they took the blinkers off. It was a 3-race experiment with blinkers on. This horse has always been a tough horse to ride. Many times he's run off with the rider, as you recall, like in the Wood Memorial, where in 46 and 3, 11 and change, and beaten 25 lengths. Kenny Decker put the blinkers on him. His next 3 starts, that didn't work, so they took the blinkers back off. And his last 2 out of 3, I thought he showed some good speed, but more relaxed speed. And last time, coming from off of a 44 and 3/2 mile, perhaps he's finally getting his mental ability together, his mind, together to match with his ability. He's always been a really sharp sprinter. He's got a great record here at Laurel Park, but I like the fact that Montanez is riding him back. He got to know him last time out in the Chaladon in beating Longshot Perfect Cover, who was a huge price and almost took them all the way in there. Tour de Force came back to win after that. So he's one of the horses to beat. The Turf to Dirt Angle, Majestic Dunhill, George Weaver. I just don't know what to make of this horse. I mean, he's faced some solid runners on the grass. Saratoga, Jersey, Kentucky Downs, just beating the neck there. He's a question mark. Rugbymen from the Graham Motion Barn looking to get back into better stride. It looks like the last couple of races he's come around again, kind of like Old Time Revival. Spartacle is an interesting long shot to me. I'm definitely going to use him in the mix from the Pinot Barn. Got a little bit of a moisture perhaps remaining in the track, even though it's going to start drying out. And I like that because this last win was huge at Parks in the mud. It won't be muddy by post time, I believe, for the 8th, but there's plenty of moisture. We had a lot of rain yesterday in the deep underneath of the track.
Yeah, and Spartacle coming in from Parks, and I said it earlier, I was talking about an aqueduct race. Seems like this fall the Parks shippers have done well when they've gone to other venues.
Yes, they have. And Golden Brown is going to get some attention. He's, again, the horse has kind of been, off and on the turf, the dirt. He seems to be a little bit better on the grass, but look at the company he's kept on the turf, Raging Bull. And, and likes the better class quality animals at Belmont and Saratoga. And I know his Haskell wasn't that good behind Good Magic, but he's had some ability on the grass before. Jersey bred, and when Patrick McBurney ships into Laurel, he means business. A lot of his horses go off big prices, and they get the winner's circle. So maybe take a look at him a little bit. I'm not quite sure how the inside's going to play today, at least at this point. So that's another factor you might want to look at. But I'm going to use Spartacle and use Old Time Revival. I think he's finally, his mental abilities finally coming together. And the real question to me is Majestic Dunhill.
Sounds good. Race number 9 this afternoon, mile and an 1/8 in the Richard Small. 3-year-olds and up going a mile and an 1/8. Small Bear comes down from New York for Gary Contessa. I think Small Bear used to be a Bill Parcells horse, if I'm not mistaken, but now is Yellow Moon stable, trained again by Gary Contessa. Dalmore scheduled. Zanatti is in here. I pulled up, however, a replay going back to October 17th, the Buddy Delp Memorial. It'll be number 4, Unbridled Juan, getting it done. This was over at Delaware Park. Couple of races most recently at Delaware, and they're 2 nice improving performances. So I think this horse is coming in maybe on the upswing. Unbridled Juan looking interesting to me in the Richard Small. What did you see?
Well, Corrales also has something awesome in here, who's pretty much the headline Corrales horse. First of all, Unbridled Juan, I like to point out that Corrales has 2 in here. He's had a good weekend. He had a couple of winners, I believe it was yesterday here at Laurel. So the barn's really coming together. Unbridled Juan's always had some ability. He's certainly had more the recent activity over his other runner, Something Awesome, who was favored in the Pimlico Special. He wasn't right after that race. They gave him some time off. He was quoted in our press release as saying he came back. He was a little bit body sore, but he's been coming around lately. The question is, will he need a race? He's 4 for 5 at Laurel, Something Awesome, and he's run triple-digit numbers in 2 of his last 3 races, one of them being here at Laurel in the Harrison Johnson, where he beat one of the horses he'll face today in Zanatti. So if he's right, I mean, he's the horse to beat. The question is the time away for him. Unbridled Juan being the other Corrales horse. Glancing, I did like Name Changer, but he's scratched. That's kind of a long shot. I'll give you a horse that could be a price. Fellowship, just when you least expected Kenny Decker, who's winning at 36%. The horse is coming off a sharp sprint at Delaware. He might be overlooked because Unbridled Juan beat him last time out in the Governor's Day at Delaware. But he wasn't beaten that far. He's only beaten a couple of lengths. And he gets Montanez aboard, a rider switch here. Goes back to him. I know he's ridden him before without much success. But this is a horse who's popped up with big races in the past. And how about that? He was second behind Something Awesome in the General George, sprinting this past winter here at Laurel Park. Don't overlook him. I mean, I think he could be a tough customer in here at a price in your triple. Tour de Force is doing good guns right now for Lacey Gaudet, and there's a hot barn. They've won 3 races this week already here at Laurel. Tour de Force, who switched into Lacey's barn back late summer. He was 3rd behind Unbridled Rival in the Chalanon Sprinting, but he's the kind of horse who could race forwardly in here. And looking at the race, Small Bear, kind of a mid-pack runner, talk show man, closer, Unbridled Juan. He's not that quick up front. Dr. Mounty looks kind of a more better turf horse. I mean, he could be forwardly placed and take that speed a long way in there. Tour de Force in the Richard Small this afternoon, and who, by the way, is a veteran. Was the late Richard Small, Vietnam veteran, Green Beret. So on Salute the Troops today, we salute Richard Small and all our bets.
Nice. Well said, because it is Veterans Day coming up on Monday. So again, I concur saluting the veterans. The horse you mentioned that I find really intriguing is Dr. Mounty, who, absolutely seems like a better turf horse. And in fact, they tried this race last year and wound up 8th. But it's Shug McGahee. I mean, this is a notable trainer that he decides to come back and try this race at 15-1. And I think, given the scenario, I think you'll get a price. And so if that price holds up, or a tick or 2 lower maybe, certainly a tick or 2 higher, just because it's Shug. And as I say, they ran 8th in the race last year, but they elected to come back. I'll put a couple of bucks on Dr. Mounty.
Well, he is a dirt winner, but I think it's going to take maybe a little bit of a leap of faith to hope that he can run as fast as some of these others have on the dirt in the past. He should be fit. I mean, he comes off that win in the Baltimore-Washington Turf Cup on that, it was called yielding ground. It was more like a bog here on September 29th, where he beat Projected. I mean, I think the course really kind of got him home. Projected was struggling a bit on it and closing on him, but it was a photo finish, and at 26-1, Shug wins a Grade 3. I mean, don't see that very often. But, I think you really just have to, cross your fingers and hope and take that faith that he's going to suddenly run somewhere in the upper 90s maybe today to try to beat this field.
Yeah, and like
You
I
know,
say,
I don't know if that's possible.
I don't either.
I didn't look back. I didn't look back at his other, say, 2 dirt races on the form, and he's had 11 on the dirt. He's a 3-time dirt winner. I didn't, go back, to look at him that closely. Maybe I'll scrutinize him a little bit.
He is going to have to step it up, but the thing is, you're going to get paid if you take the shot. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing that intrigues
Well,
me.
I got paid last time, 26-1.
Yeah. Maybe this is. I missed the wedding. Although I think this will still be a wedding. I still think he's going to be a price. So maybe two weddings.
Zanotti's a hard knocker. He's a hard knocker, but he's winless this year. He just, can't seem to seal the deal. Behind Something Awesome, behind Name Changer, scratched out of this race. One of the horses that I thought had a shot. I mean, you're going to say, is Something Awesome ready all of a sudden after time away? Is he as good as he was back in the spring to beat this field at a distance ground off a layoff for Corrales? Perhaps.
Yeah, that was my question.
Or are you going to search around for a price?
Yeah, that was my question mark. That's why I went with the replay with Unbridled Juan. Just on the recent form, that one has a little bit of an edge to me on Something Awesome. But Edgar Prado on Something Awesome, too. Should mention that.
Right. He just gets along with him. He knows how to ride him.
All right, Dave, got to wrap it up, but certainly appreciate the visit and the thoughts on the card this afternoon. As always, wish you and everybody down at Laurel good luck.
No, we didn't touch on the earlier races. I was just glancing through them. A filly I've always liked, who got blinkers on last time and put it together. We'll give you a little price play in the 3rd race on Smart Halo Stakes. And number 3, Helen. Helen in the 3rd race.
10 to 1.
Could be hell on wheels.
Speaking of that, you had a good one yesterday. I laughed. But did you was Hillary your call yesterday? Unlucky Hillary.
Oh yeah, Hillary. Yeah, she almost won by a landslide, but it was a length and a half. She was very popular in the parimutuel vote. She was the favorite, and
I laughed.
I always thought that Hillary won.
I laughed as they came down the stretch. That was a good one. Dave, again, appreciate the visit, and as I say, good luck to you and everybody down at Laurel today.
You're super obscure if you remember Helen Wheels by Wings and Paul McCartney. I mean, that's.
What was it? And speaking of that, you had an obscure one in, and I texted you about 2 months ago. That was like too hip for the room, but that's why I laughed more.
Yeah, I do it just for you, Seth. Right?
Thank you.
Helen could be ready in the 3rd race. That's all I can tell you.
Very good. Now I got to root for her to win, so we get an extended call there as well. Dave, as always, appreciate the visit.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Dave Rodman from Laurel. Again, nice stakes day down there today as well. We're going to talk a little bit about Del Mar as they kicked off their fall meet yesterday. John Lees comes up right after this. Stay tuned.
Dirty windows? Don't do it yourself. Call Clean Image, your window cleaning professionals, and enhance the look of your business or home without the worry. Clean Image pledges nothing less than 100% customer satisfaction. It's guaranteed. Homes, offices, bed and breakfast, vacation homes, and more. Clean Image has cleaned them all. Carpet and floor cleaning, pressure washing, and janitorial services are also available. Call today, 446-1397. That's 446-1397. Online at clean-image.net.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Sign up today for Capital OTB's handicapping series and plan your trip to Las Vegas. Welcome back again. Del Mar kicked off their fall meet yesterday, and I thought we'd get a little preview with John Lees. He is the paddock host throughout the meet. You'll see him there. You can find his selections on the website as well, as it is a 3-hour time difference. I thought we would tape with John yesterday. let him sleep a little longer. We caught him with him a little bit later in the day yesterday and taped an interview. So Del Mar Fall Meet Preview with paddock host John Lees next. Opening weekend at Del Mar for their fall meet, and I thought we'd get a little Del Mar preview. Nobody better to reach out to than John Lees. You can see him in the paddock throughout the meet, giving some pre-race commentary. You can also find his selections every day on the Del Mar website. John, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm always excited for any Del Mar meet to start, and the fall's a lot of fun because there's an on-track buzz. It's kind of a local vibe, but it's controlled. It's everything that we love about Del Mar, but not some of the things that we mind about the summer meet. You're getting kind of overloaded. So it's a fun little time in November.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to compare and contrast a little bit. I'd love to get out there. We're located right down the road from Saratoga, and we broadcast from the backstretch every day. So it's tough for those of us who are Saratoga folks to get out to Del Mar, although the last few years we've had the fall opportunity. It's on my list. I plan to get out there. But, yeah, compare and contrast a little bit that the summer meet to the fall meet.
Well, we don't use the full facility, if you think of it that way. It's kind of like some of these wealthy families that got a 10,000 square foot house, but that they spend their time in the family room and the kitchen only. The rest of the house they don't use. It's a little bit like that in the fall. Of course, we've got this massive capacity where we could host something like the Breeders' Cup, but there's a buzz around the paddock. There's a buzz in the clubhouse side. It's pretty scarce over in the grandstand, and you can find these little nooks and crannies of the track, benches and stuff that probably you and I as fans growing up, from as little as we could get away with it and stuff, these parks and tracks that have got these areas to go and hang out, and if you want to just read the forum and get away from people, you can do that here in the fall, but it's nice. There's still a vibe. There's horse players. There's some buzz. But it's controlled. The summer meet is great. I love it as much as anybody. Sometimes, especially on concert days, opening day, of course, is a great big party. It can get a little bit out of hand just as far as the convenience of the large crowds and things like that. But it's a good crowd, but you don't really find those kinds of inconveniences in the fall. The other thing, too, is the weather is perfect. A little-known secret, the very best time of year in San Diego, where it's always nice, happens to be the month of November. It's typically 65 and sunny and mild, and it's just, a nice, comfortable day one after the other. So that's the other part, too, is that you really can't beat the weather, so that goes right along with it.
I was going to ask you to compare and contrast the weather as well, but I assume Southern California, it's always nice out there. So November, no exception to that rule. John, before we get to little Del Mar and this weekend, maybe some thoughts for Saturday afternoon, I want to go back to last week because I've been asking all the guests thoughts on the Breeders' Cup. And I know you're a guy, you've announced at various venues around the country and been in the racing office as well. So maybe not an absolute allegiance to Southern California, but being that you're based through this meet at Del Mar, certainly the SoCal-based connections did very well last weekend. Top of the list, of course, John Sadler breaking through with Accelerate. Mike McCarthy with the small state. I think I read he has 30 horses, and 5 or 6 of them went to the Breeders' Cup. Gets it done with City of Light. Peter Miller with Roy H. and Stormy Liberal. And, of course, game winner for Bob Baffert. So it was a nice performance by those SoCal-based connections that we will see at Del Mar. But overall, your thoughts on last week's Breeders' Cup?
It's always nice to see those local guys win. As you said, even going back to the 80s when the initial early classic years of the Breeders' Cup, when it was just that one event on a November Saturday, you're kind of trained from the beginning to root for the West Coast horses when it was in places like New York and Florida and such. But so I probably suppose I'm always going to have a home game kind of a mentality that way. No pun on Game Winner, who obviously was impressive, but it's good to see. I can do you one more. I think also a little known fact is that I used to work for John Sadler. I actually come from a background. Those of people that know me as a TV host or a race caller may not know that my dad was Richard Lees, was a small-time trainer down here in San Diego. That's why Del Mar is so special to me, because that's where I got my roots. Growing up here, going to the track, from the 80s as early as I could. And John Sadler happens to be somebody that I worked for when I was about 22 or so. I was walking hots for him in the morning. This is before he really had gotten big. He just had kind of a steady, kind of claiming an allowance type horses then. So I got the chance to work for John and know him. I've always rooted for him, and he's always supported me. So that was extra special. I think the most important thing is the fact that finally it gets that monkey off of his back as far as winning an important race outside of California. He had that stigma. I'm sure that he was tired of that rhetoric, but that was hanging on. And, boy, after Catalina Cruiser, I wonder if he was thinking if it was ever going to happen. But sure enough, Accelerate came through. I'll tell you this, though. It's one heck of a debate now about what to do about Horse of the Year.
Absolutely.
In my eyes, it really is. Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you, I've been in the game for a while now. Accelerate, he won, but he was not brilliant as far as his Breeders' Cup Classic, just to look at that race. Yes, he won, but it wasn't phenomenal. Some of his other races were more breathtaking earlier in the year, but his body of work is fantastic. Justify, I get it. I get both sides. How can you not give it to a Triple Crown winner? But by the same token, he flashed along in 4 months, and we have nothing to compare it to. So I kind of get it. And then there's going to be another movement of people that are going to stand up for the Filly Monomoy Girl. So it really, really is interesting as far as that goes. I'm not going to cast a vote. I think it's very debatable. I can see it going, really any of those directions. But it was good to see those horses shine on the big day. That I can say for sure.
Yeah, as a voter, I think I'm tilting towards Accelerate. I taped the Handicappers Report a little bit earlier, and I was talking with my co-host there, and we were talking about this very subject and kind of agreed that you can't take anything away from Justify. That was a phenomenal, couple of months he put together to breeze through the Triple Crown, but we didn't see him after that. He never matched up against older horses, whereas Accelerate, I think, had far more of what is traditionally the Horse of the Year type campaign, covering more of the entire calendar, and really stacked up those grade ones, including the capper in the Breeders' Cup Classic. We just watched the stretch run while you were talking, and he didn't pull away from the field, but he did everything you could ask for him. And again, it was, to me, maybe a more traditional kind of Horse of the Year campaign.
No question. And in some years, depending on what happens the whole year, we wouldn't even be discussing it. A horse like Accelerate would be a slam dunk. In some other years, Justify would be a slam dunk if the older horses, kind of bogged down. And in some years, Lady Secret, she got Horse of the Year way back in the 80s. There has been, other times that a filly is going to step up and get that vote if the male, just kind of floundered. But in this case, you've got 3 stars, all with good credentials that people are going to debate. So the good thing about it, they're talking about racing. That's what I like.
Yeah, I'm with you. People always are kind of like throw up their hands when Breeders' Cup or Eclipse discussions come up after the Breeders' Cup. But I always say, like you, the more we discuss it and the more fun it is, and that's part of what makes horse racing. You get through the Breeders' Cup, there's still a couple of months of racing for some of those divisions that maybe haven't been decided. Horses could take another shot if they wanted to put their exclamation point on things, and that's the fun of the game, certainly. Again, before we get back to Del Mar, you brought up your background, and it kind of intrigued me a little bit. You said a background on the backstretch with your dad being a trainer. How did you then transition from that to the announcing side? Because certainly you have the voice, the TV, radio announcing voice. How did you make the move over into the announcer's booth?
Well, Trevor Denman is the one that set the whole thing in motion because, as I mentioned, growing up down here, my age and when I was about old enough to become a fan and be able to read the form and kind of be a kid that knew what was going on, that happened to be right at the same time. And about 84 actually was the first year that Trevor was employed here at Del Mar as the announcer. Of course, he's held that spot ever since. I became an immediate fan. No disrespect, of course, to guys like Dave Johnson or any of the others, Alan Buckdahl, that were here at the time. But Trevor really just caught my attention. I started imitating his accent, of course, like everybody does, from a very, very young age. I'm talking 7 to 8 years old. The first time I got to meet him, I think I was 9, and it was arranged for my dad and a jockey agent. I was able to go up and meet him. Again, this is back in the 80s. And this is the old Del Mar. This is not the current facility. Remember, they tore it down in 91. So I've got these memories back then. And anyway, he's the one that started it. I met him up there. I saw what he did and probably have a natural inclination to do things like that. Public speaking, also drama, theater, music, and performance. All of that stuff is right in my wheelhouse. So there is a connection to, doing something like being the race caller or the public address announcer. And he kind of set that childhood dream in motion for me when I was young. So that really was the start of it. And I kind of hoped that was a dream that would someday lead me back to Del Mar. And it has, in a sense. Del Mar has just been great to me. And, it's been a great time, this job that I have being the TV host has it's been a great run, and obviously I enjoy it very much. But that's how it started. It was Trevor's influence. And then, we as announcers all kind of make our way, and the jobs come and go, and it is what it is. But that's how it started, and that was kind of the combination of the background here, all with the roots in Southern California.
Very good. All right, let's talk a little Del Mar. And again, the fall meet kicks off this weekend, and just want to alert people. I'm correct. You can correct me, but I believe it is correct. A couple of pick 4s and a couple of pick 5s every day, correct?
Yes, that's right. The 50 cent and the early pick 5 is the one with the reduced takeout of the 14%. The true players pick 5. That's the one that you want to try to take advantage of with the takeout, is the early traditional pick 5.
Early pick 5, the first 5 races, the late pick 5, the last 5 races. Also, I'll alert people, because I visited the website last night in anticipation of talking to you. There's an online contest that I think is a lot of fun. It's free. People can make a mythical $100 win, place, and show. You have to bet 10 races during the meet, but there's a chance to send a couple of people to Vegas.
Yeah, these contests have just grown so much in their popularity. I mean, you hit it right there. You know as much as I do about as far as that goes. One of these days, I'm going to have to get involved in playing it myself. There's a number of other announcers and TV personalities that are well-known, and they pony up, and they get some partners, and they do well in these things. So it's definitely something to take a look at. They really are burgeoning in popularity all over the place, and Del Mar is no exception.
Well, you say you'll have to jump on board. I think I'm going to jump on board. When I read about this contest with a couple of shots in Vegas, I'm going to take my shot, I think. And as I say, it's a free online contest. Folks can find out more about it on the Del Mar website. All right, John, let's take a look at some ideas for Saturday afternoon at Del Mar. And we have 3 races we're going to take a look at. We talked a little bit before we went on air. You said 3, 4, and 5, but you said maybe you had a little bit of a price in race number 3 on Saturday. That's a maiden special for state breds scheduled on the grass at a mile. What were your thoughts on race 3?
Well, it gives me a little bit of a pick 3 to focus on mid-card as well, because they happen to flop that way on 3, 4, and 5. But there's a 12-1 shot in this race, number 3, Boolicious, that I think might be a good gamble. This is a filly that made one start on the main track last month, as you can see in the past performances. And if you go back and watch, I mean, it says off very slowly in green. It was as if this was her first time that she ever set foot on the racetrack. I mean, she just seems to know nothing about it. That first eighth of a mile, everybody else was in one race, and she was in another, as they say. But once she took hold, she definitely can run. She's swishing her tail the whole time. She's running up into traffic. She doesn't know what to do with herself that day, but she does show that she can run. So she comes back here second time. She's got the pedigree to go a mile on turf out of a dam by Royal Academy. Was the Breeders' Cup mile winner. We just talked about that way back in the day in 90, back in New York, actually. So anyway, she's got the pedigree for it. It is true that typically I prefer horses that have got 2 sprints before they stretch out, but you're going to get the odds to gamble. And I know that this filly can run. So, and she ought to get 2 turns as well. I don't think that she's going to be a 5.5, 6 furlong kind of horse. So take the price in the 3rd race on number 3, Boolicious. It's also a good betting race because you got a big field of 10 on the grass, and that's when I like to try those trifectas as well. Maybe get it all in there for 2nd or 3rd, and since you like the price anyway, I think that could be anything. So great betting race there on the grass. 3rd race, 12-1 on number 3, Boolicious for trainer Craig Lewis.
I like it. Put a nice little workout subsequent to that first start as well. A little bullet best at 27 that kind of jumps out as well. 4th race on Saturday, $14,000 to $16,000 claimers. In race 4, they'll go 3/4 of a mile. Your thoughts on the 4th?
Yeah, don't forget about the Ship and Win program at Del Mar. There's an added incentive. There's bonus money for guys to come in from out of state with qualified horses. They get a bonus on top of whatever the overnight purse is for that first race, that first start that they make out at state. So they need to make the first one count. Trainer Robertino Diodoro, who is just a very sharp claiming trainer all around the country, he's got 2 horses in here. I believe that number 6, Super Touch, is the better of the 2, the more well-meant of the 2. I don't think he's going to be favored, but I think that he's well spotted here for $16,000. If you look closely, he's actually been facing decent horses at Canterbury and some other tracks. Turf Paradise there last time at a stakes race. I think that he's well spotted, and the tip-off for me is the choice of jockey Giovanni Franco, 23% wins, jockey trainer combo in 2017 and 18. He's got a second horse in the race. I'm not going to say makes the race go, but it's a field of 7, and this horse here is also drawn well to the outside. The favorite has taken a dropping class off of a win. The others look kind of shaky at best. I think he's a decent gamble. Not going to be 12-1, 7-horse field, but take the price in the 4th on number 6, Super Touch. He looks live to me.
All right, finally, race number 5. Nice little maiden special weight event for 2-year-old fillies. Again, this will kick off the late pick 5 on Saturday afternoon. And these 2-year-old fillies are going to go a mile on the grass. Your thoughts in the 5th?
Yeah, go back if you get a chance and watch the replay on number 6, Mercy Mercy, from her race on October the 20th. If you don't get the chance, that's okay, but this is one to play back today off of that effort. I think that she's going to be ready to win. I love the jockey switch to Mike Smith, just one of the very best in the game, but all, of course, Hall of Famer, especially on the grass. It's in the comment line over on the right as far as the trouble. She did appear to have more in the tank, and I always try to watch the gallop out, and she did get up and kind of match strides with the winner of that race on the gallop out. It was an encouraging first start on the grass for this filly, who happens to be an Oklahoma bred, which is a kind of an odd coincidence. But this filly for Bob Hess Jr., off of that last race, and she does seem to be steadily improving. I think with the right trip today, she can break her maiden here at a decent price. That's number 6, Mercy Mercy, kind of a playback off the video last time. I think that she's primed to get the maiden broken here.
John, before we let you go, you mentioned a couple of the personalities, trainers, and jockeys, and I pulled up from Equibase and went back to the summertime, the last Del Mar meet, the trainer battle at Del Mar. Peter Miller in the summer kind of pulled away. Peter Miller was the top trainer by about 10 wins. Doug O'Neill second, Jerry Hollendorfer third. On the jockey side at Del Mar in the summer, it was Drayden Van Dyke, Flavien Prat, Tyler Bays, 1, 2, 3. And then at the most recently concluded Santa Anita meet, we're looking at shots right there of the leaders from Santa Anita. Flavien Prat on the jockey side, Rafael Bejarano, Espinoza third, Drayden Van Dyke fourth, and just on the recently concluded Santa Anita meet, trainer side, Jerry Hollendorfer and Peter Miller tied Doug O'Neill and Bob Baffert third and fourth. Any thoughts on the human side at this Del Mar fall meet?
Doesn't sound like I would expect a lot of change in either division. I maybe would expect Drayden Van Dyke to do better here than what was just described in his standings at the meet up there. To me, he's just a phenomenal young talent, especially on the grass. The trainers, those are the big names, but they also run a lot of horses, so that's the thing. I do try to look for live trainers. With guys like that make so many starts, Miller, O'Neill, et cetera, D'Amato, another one, you can't just play every horse they enter, clearly. So, you have to kind of be selective. There are some other kind of gem trainers, I think, that will show that it's such a short meet. I think you want to pay attention, though, the first couple of weeks to some of those, like I say, middle-of-the-road kind of second-tier trainers that show that they are live and they win a bunch of races right off. There's something about that when they catch fire that just things are just going well right now as far as that goes. Del Mar is one of those places where that tends to continue. So I try to get on the hot trainers if you can after the first couple of weeks. As far as the leaders, those sound like the right guys, especially Peter Miller, that they've got so many bullets to fire in the holster that just keep coming at you with, the next string of fit horses that they have looking for the right spot. I don't see why he's not going to be tough right back.
All right, John, again, we appreciate the visit and a little preview on the upcoming Del Mar fall meet. Look forward to watching you every racing day on the simulcast down in the paddock, and maybe we'll catch up with you again before the meet ends.
I'd love to. Yeah, don't forget we've got special Monday racing coming up this Monday for the Veterans Day holiday. After that, look for us Thursday through Sunday through December 2nd. That'll be the last day.
Very good. John, again, appreciate the conversation.
Thanks, guys.
John Lees from Del Mar. Thanks to John Lees from Del Mar. Again, you can watch him every day on the simulcast signal from the paddock. He's the paddock host. You can find his selections every day at the Del Mar website. And as I mentioned, Del Mar website also with the free contest where you have to make a mythical bet. And it's not every day. I think you're required to make 10 if I read the rules right during the time period of the meet. But the winner gets sent to Vegas. So it's a free online contest at the Del Mar site. And again, if you're a Pick 5 fan, they have 2 every day. First 5 races, the last 5 races, a couple of Pick 4s as well. So fun meet at Del Mar. John Lees, again, thanks to him. A little bit earlier, Dave Rodman from Laurel on a nice stakes day down in Maryland. And in South Florida, Sunshine Millions preview day with good stakes down at Gulfstream Park West as well. And we talked to Ron Nicoletti about that. Thanks to all the guests this morning. Let me hit you with promos before we jump out. Speaking of the Vegas handicapping contest, we've been doing the monthly contest here at Capital OTB that will send one of our patrons to Vegas. And the November monthly contest is today. Road to Vegas handicapping contest. More information available via the website, capitalotb.com. Tomorrow, it's an NFL Sunday here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Wear a jersey, you get in for free. Put your name on a square. You can potentially win a prize. Every Sunday during the NFL season, you can watch all the games and catch, of course, all the racing action right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. And don't forget, this month, if you bet with your Capital OTB bet account, you can take advantage of the 3% Churchill bonus. There are some restrictions. You can find out more about that on the website. But again, 3% bonus days every Churchill racing day with Churchill wagers via your Capital OTB bet account. As always, more information on that, all the promos and events at the website, capitalotb.com. All right, I'm Seth Merrill. Going to wind things up for this edition of Racing Across America. Be back in, well, with racing starting, with daylight savings, things kick off a little bit earlier now. So within the next hour and a half or so, we will be back with the Saturday edition of OTB Live. Oh, I should mention also, yesterday we had a bankroll here at the Clubhouse Racebook. It was an anemic performance by me. I really only hit one thing. Everybody on the bankroll team, therefore, wound up with a little money, very little, $5 or $6. It was not a knock it out of the park, but it was funny. I was looking at Aqueduct, Churchill, and Woodbine. Played some pick bets. It was a hard day to string things together. I was playing exactas and trifectas, and just, first, third, and fourth, first and third, with some quirky things happening at each of the three tracks. It was just a funny day. I always say, I go home afterwards and kind of review, could I have bet differently? And really, it was just a day where I was zigging and they were zagging for most of the day. The very last race, I took a swing with a triple, and it turned out my top two ran 1-2. So if I had boldly played the exacta, that may have been the one play I could have switched up and made a little money. But it was, as I say, a little bit of a tough day yesterday. So my apologies to the team for not making more money. Another bankroll coming up day after Thanksgiving at O'Toole's out on Central Avenue. I think Sully will be there, so that should be a lot of fun. We get a chance to saddle up again and try to win the bankroll team some money. All right. Again, I'm going to wrap things up for this edition of Racing Across America. We will be back, though, in about an hour and a half with OTB Live for Saturday afternoon. Please stay tuned. We'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.